Hello, this is Robin Crosby from RAT. And if your cable system doesn't carry U68, then call them up, tell them to fucking quit messing around. And if your cable system doesn't carry U68, then call them up and tell them that. Hello, this is Robin Crosby. God, I can't even get my own name. That's fucked up. All right. Hello, this is Robin Crosby from RAT, and when you're in your car, remember to buckle up for safety. It's the law.
Hello and welcome to John Jughead Pierson reads his book, Weasels in a Box. We are now on Chapter 9. Chapter 9. 2 to 3 hour phone conversations with Karen are frequent and consistent during the following year. Sometimes you call her up just to tell her that you happen to be sad at the moment. No matter whether it is about your slowly dying father, financially struggling mother, or just plain post-teen angst, her voice remains calm, light-hearted, and soothing. She laughs at the stupid, ridiculous things you say. I was playing Scrabble by myself earlier today, and do you know what happened? Do you know what? No, I don't know, Jack. I discovered that I cheat. Better be careful. If you're dishonest with yourself, what's stopping you from being dishonest with others? I know. Don't tell me that. Tell myself that. She laughs. There's often precursory. I hated that word. I don't know why I used it. I just had to use it in print. Precursory. Yeah, there's often precursory talk of her visiting, but the adventure does not seem to be affordable. Also, a visit may put too much pressure on the ambiguousness of the relationship. She never did visit, and I lost track of her for years and years until Even and Blackout started touring, and she moved to Austin, Karen, and I actually presented her with the book. And we've been friends online ever since. I think she got married a couple of years ago. To a pretty cool guy, it looks like, so good for her. Anyway, there is a security in this low-maintenance routine. A satisfactory, solitary calmness remains undisturbed by this disembodied voice that has shape, texture, smell, and warmth only in the imaginary recreations of a short moment in the past. The rest of the band never suspects that this odd relationship goes any further than just saying hello while in town. Hell, they probably never realize it is the same girl making quick visits. Oh, who's that? I got interrupted there by my upstairs neighbor, also a friend from high school. We had his 50th birthday last night. But I didn't want to start over again because I don't like repeating things that I said spontaneously, and I liked talking about Karen there, so I don't want to repeat that. So let's continue. I'll start from here. Yes. Here we go. The rest of the band never suspects that this odd relationship goes any further than just saying hello while in town. Hell, they probably never realize it is the same girl making quick visits. The lineup changes so many times, it is hard to keep track of who is there and when. None of them know how often you chat and laugh together or how interested you are in what she is doing with her life. How is she surviving? You give her counsel on the pros and cons of going to college. She ends up never going. That decision had nothing to do with you. You ask about the musicians she has met recently. Did she sleep with them? Inquiries into specific details in regard to the aforementioned question are never asked. Actually, the aforementioned question is never asked. It is just thought about as she speaks enthusiastically of the bands she encounters. The second time the band travels back to Houston, the name of the venue changes to the barely pronounceable Bubba Wabba Belong. What did I call it? Bubba Hoobalong Hut Boutique and Lounge. Bubba Hoobalong Hut Boutique and Lounge. It was actually called the Quackawakam. I can never remember the Hook Plucka Lounge. I don't know what it was. Maybe I'll look it up and post it. At the second show, a year later, Karen is busy in the early evening and is not available to stop by until late in the night. I remember that. The band has to leave right after the show to drive to the next city for an afternoon appearance in an indie record store. There's only time for a fast reintroduction to the bandmates. You grab her and pull her aside for a moment to give her a hug. You wrap your hands completely around her sharp shoulder blades and squeeze as if you are hugging her into yourself. She gives you a kiss with eyes open. You touch her bony, freckled cheek. Both of you make a mutual promise to call soon. Texas is so goddamn big. There's no communication for at least a few months after this emotional display. The conversations continue on in a vague manner for the next 7 or 8 months while Franklin and you work to pay for the next tour. Even though the band has become pretty well known, there's still never enough money in a band fund to pay for gas and necessities. The Malibu had broken down not too long after the Malibu tour, and now the band goes through used vans like the Osmonds go through toothpaste. Well, that's such an outdated reference. They have really nice teeth. You and Karen continue questioning each other as usual about each other's lives, but now barely ever commenting on how one another feels about what the other has said. By the third visit, the capricious cloak of transformation has wrapped the first experience in a blanket of fabrication. The name of the venue has changed once again to the boring and ultimately forgettable yet pronounceable Leaping Lizard Lounge. The barely pronounceable Bubba Hoobalong Hut Boutique and Lounge was obviously helping to cause the scene to shrink just by the sheer audacity of the venue allowing itself to be called by such a nom de plume. That's not true. Top this with the patrons' unwillingness to promote such a ridiculous name, and where does that leave them? The music scene in Houston had begun to disseminate, and the ever-changing name of this particular venue is just a microcosm of a larger phenomenon. Houston no longer represents the perfect decadent town of social misfits who accept each other's oddities and attend every show no matter what style of music it happens to be. The scene is growing and shrinking at the same time. We did actually, with even in Blackouts, two of our closest, our biggest fans became two of our closest friends. Seth, my friends Seth and Jen. Yeah, Jen and Seth actually live in Houston. They invited us to a friend of theirs' house. It was a big mansion, and we played an acoustic show there. So there's still stuff going on in Houston. I still like that area. Karen shows up with an entourage of neo-glam rockers, and alongside her is her old-time crazy friend, Petra. Petra no longer seems to fit in with the style of the rest of them. You are not quite sure what the implications are in the unchanging Petra and the changed Karen, but it seems meaningful. Petra hasn't changed hardly at all, except for the bright orange color of her dyed hair. But you have learned that constant hair change is one of the only signs of consistency in wild, out-of-control punk rockers with their identities in crisis like Petra. Karen and the neo-glam rockers have glitter on their cheeks and eyelashes. They have boas wrapped around their anorexic necks. Their dyed, dried-out, and split-ended heads are covered with technicolor wigs. They are wearing large, ornate sunglasses, even though the sun had sunk into the sea hours ago. The seeds of retro are beginning to take root. I've moved on from punk. I find it a bit juvenile, but you're still cute. Thanks, Karen. You're still cute too, but I never considered you just a punk. It is easy to glean from the neo-glam rockers' expressions that they want to be seen elsewhere in some fashionable club, maybe where laser-lit dance floors, vibrating bass speakers, and cocaine lines on restroom counters are more important than the music itself. They don't care that Karen has befriended a band that has been steadily on the rise since she first met us. They are not impressed by Semi-Famous's increasing semi-fame. She asks how you are doing, but does not listen to the answer you are not giving. She kisses you on the cheek, a little peck for a small child. We have to go now. See you, sweetie. She leaves cherry-flavored lip prints on your skin. Her pink boa irritates your nose. There is silver and pink glitter stuck to the side of your face. She then exits. It is uncomfortable. It is no longer anything resembling anything familiar or vitalizing. The whole encounter lasts less than 10 minutes and mistakes you feel... The whole encounter lasts less than 10 minutes and makes you feel small and insignificant. It erases any connection the two of you may have had, and fills the empty space with cheap superficiality and parasitic glitter that burrows into your skin like shards of aluminum. I think, this is kind of harsh to like that scene, but in this book I was allowing myself to be harsh like that and allow the emotions to fuel the words. So, in general, I don't really think this harsh about different scenes. I was just trying to accent the fact that I was pretty crazy about her. It was over a 3-year period. Of course things would change for her. What did you expect? Of course, that's why the me voice comes out in this one. So let me start that over. This is the quotes. It was over a 3-year period. Of course things would change for her. What did you expect? Did you think you could freeze time? You called her less and less. It was the most natural unfolding of events. But let's not interrupt the sentimental flashback you are having. Never mind what I just said. I'm not here. And you can't even hear me with those headphones on anyway. You are still standing in the backstage area of the Leaping Lizard Lounge. But now it is many years later, and Karen is nowhere near the place, and you are wearing headphones. My voice may be coming from the speakers pressed against your ears, or the voice may be floating, coming from nowhere. You are about to respond to me. You're about to speak out loud into the empty air while strangers and friends from the boys from Wyoming meander about looking bored. You hold back the response for a moment, pretending as if you hadn't heard what I said, and then you decide to speak out loud against your better judgment. No, that's fine. I'm done thinking about Karen. I don't expect to ever see her again. And I can hear you. I could put cement in my ears, and I could still hear you loud and clear. No one turns around. No one hears what you have just said. No one at all. There's more of that sort of negative actions of things happening. I actually just talked to Josh Caterer from Smoking Popes about that, about some of his writing does this sort of negative writing where it's not the opposite. It's negative as in you're almost making it exist by the fact that it never happened. So you both get the effect of what would happen if you had said something, and you also get the effect of saying something you should have. So I think it gives like two different feelings at once. And that, it was the end of Chapter 9.
At the Galaxy, this used to be the dressing room right here. And there used to be windows over here.
There used to be a railing right here.
No, there was never a railing there.
I know, I fell down twice.
Yeah, if you had too much to drink or you were like real tired after a show, sometimes you could kind of...
Lucky you get 2 chapters today. We are still in Book 2, and now we are up to Chapter 10. So, the bass begins shorting out a third of the way through the set. The bass player from the boys from Wyoming tries to continue as if nothing is bothering him, but he is visibly upset and disappointed. He blushes. His face turns a dull red, pulsing around the lips and the temples. He avoids looking people in the eyes. He punches the volume controls on his amp with the side of his fist. His frustration from thinking he let you down progressively causes him to play worse and worse, only half of which can be heard anyway. Your strap falls off twice and the guitar unplugs from the amp. You can't hear the singer through the monitors. The guitarist and the singer from the boys from Wyoming looks at you occasionally and shakes his head back and forth in disbelief. Not at all regretting having you play, he instead immediately blames it on the sound system and the sound guy, the town, the venue. All the songs sound the same without the vocals and harmonies, and you don't know what chords are to be played until milliseconds after you play them. Noticeable to musicians, that slight hesitation that steals away the groove. The audience is affected, and yet they may not be aware of their dissatisfaction. They slam dance and rock out anyway. It's punk rock. While unplugging the gear, a paradoxical feeling of overwhelming devastation and giddy-inducing euphoria sets in. Wow, that sounded amazingly dreadful. You drove 1,000 miles in order to suck. Yet everyone in the crowd is smiling when the band walks off the stage. Fans from the audience say it sounded great. They could be telling the truth. They could be lying. It doesn't matter. You are back on stage. Your muscles are sore and your head is a little dizzy. But so what? The experience so far isn't revelatory, but it feels good. Great playing, old boy. Was it fun for you? It sucked. Your bass stopped making bass-like sounds, and I can hardly remember a full song. Why did I come here? Never mind. I know why. To make you suck. You rub your hands through your hair, scratching your scalp. You do this sometimes as if you could scratch and shake the bad memories from your head. This town is a pile of shit, JJ. They didn't deserve a good show. You're just saying that to make me feel better. No, I do think this town is a pile of shit. But I think every town is a pile of shit. Fuck this place. We'll just call it a live rehearsal. We should sound just fine by the time we roll into Boston. This is kind of the really cool beginning of me and Corey's relationship as friends. We hung out a lot on that tour, and I think a lot of it shows up in this book. Boston has become important in the touring band's eye. There was an influential compilation record that came out of there in the 80s called Boston, Not L.A. It sent a ripple through the punk rock community, causing hardcore to crank it up a notch. This will be the boys from Wyoming's first time in Boston. Plus, they'll be playing with the Flaming Faggots. They want to sound good. You take a walk out front and stand on the street corner. You look to your left and expect to see Karen there, but she's not. You'll never see her again. Aha! But I did. It seems odd that what truly makes you feel alone is not a lack of friends, but a feeling that there are so many individuals out there who have shared great moments with you, and you will likely never see most of them again. I've written lots of songs about that idea, about this, this sad feeling I get when I actually meet someone I like. This thought often creeps its way into your brain. You promise not to think of Karen again. Well, at least not so soon. So you push this thought and Karen away from your memory. What replaces it is an absurd occurrence that's from a chain reaction of Karen, this venue, old friends, and new friends. At the last show, when Karen showed up with the glam rockers, in that small amount of time, it was easy to see that her friend Petra were fading from each other's friendship. The clothes, the grimaces, when the others spoke, and all the unknown stuff behind doors like stealing each other's coquettish conquests and just a plain, simple growing apart of interests. Karen left before the band even went on stage, and Petra had stayed long enough to make a dent in your memory. Petra had found new friends also, just like Karen, and from the look of Petra's new friends, they didn't seem to have it any more together than her. These people didn't make any kind of notable impression, and neither would have Petra. Her life and your life only touched through 2 degrees of separation and indifference. But only touched through 2 degrees... Oh, I just said that. I'm thinking of other things about this, because I really introduced Petra a lot in this book, and the incident it turns into by the end of the book is a real person, but this section is not a real person. Karen was with someone who was kind of she was very pretty and very different than Karen, but her name wasn't Petra, and it wasn't this person that's later in the book. So I just threw myself off thinking about that. So anyway, Petra, her life and your life only touched through 2 degrees of separation and indifference, but what she did later that night will probably stick in your mind forever. About an hour before Semi-Famous was to play, you, Mr. Franklin, and Gubb stood on the sidewalk exactly where you are standing in this flashback. This corner in Houston, actually it wasn't in Houston, I think it actually happened in New Orleans. I think that's right. Or maybe in Alabama. Can't remember. I'll ask Gubb. This corner in Houston is similar to the familiar corner in Boston that you are at this moment, walking back to with the bass player from the Boys from Wyoming. Gubb is a fellow who filled in on bass for this tour, Claude Strophobia, a musical idiot savant who was the actual bass player at the time, had so much social anxiety that at 24 years old he still could not handle a single evening away from his overprotective family dinners. This is John Stockfish. He's actually a really good friend of mine, and once again I was being I think, a little bit harsh here, but he did have pretty bad anxiety, and him and Joe Vindictive lived in the same building that Joe's family owned for years and years and years. So they built their own studio so that they didn't have to go anywhere. They built their own studio, I think, in the basement. Anyway, there was no way he could go on tour and eat dinner with his parents simultaneously. There was no way his family would part with these ritual dinners. So mathematically, there was no way Claude would be able to tour. Franklin was dead set on not playing any instrument on the tour, so Muddle moved from bass to guitar, and Gubb, a friend of Dred's, came with, did much of the driving, and played bass. Gubb was a lead guitarist, but guitarists were always filling in on bass. In the early pop-punk sound, there didn't seem to be any need for someone who actually was trained on bass. There was no fancy schmancy scales or finger-picking. The band just played the bass like a deeper guitar with notes instead of chords. This is, it's really interesting that I refer to Gubb and refer to him as Gubb in my book. And when I wrote this book, I had no clue that he would eventually be in Even in Blackouts. Gubb says that back on this tour that he always knew that one day we would work together again. I find that interesting. Anyway, the three of you stood outside the door of the club. That would be me, Ben, and Gubb. Or Mr. Famous Gubb and me, Bedbug. The three of you stood outside the door of the club, enjoying the subtle breeze that helps to tolerate the hot southern sun that continues to burn even when the sun itself is removed from the darkened sky. I like that sentence. The lack of sleep and natural excessive talking of Gubb causes a bizarre conversation to take place about Midwesterners carrying the winter in their hearts as they travel through the hot South. The chaotic change of weather in the Midwest causes the inhabitants of this area to compensate by creating their own realistic way of dealing with the imbalance. Midwesterners are characteristically psychologically ready for any unpredictability forced upon them. I think that's pretty true. Gubb has a habit of repeating the words that he hears as they are being said. While you're talking, he will mouth the vowels and consonants that are spoken and then vocalize the last words as they fall from your mouth. I actually, he doesn't do this as much anymore. He did, I think, when Even in Blackouts first started. He was doing it very little, but it's something, it's a habit of his that stopped over time. And I asked him if he had some form of Tourette's, but he never went to have it checked out. He still has this interesting things he does. Like if he has headphones on, he doesn't realize that people can hear what he's saying. It's kind of charming. Like sometimes in the van, he'll have headphones on and he's just talking to himself and not knowing that we can hear him. It gives one the impression that he is in your head, experiencing your thoughts process before it is vocalized. Often it is discovered that he has no idea what is truly being said. He is just putting the sounds together out loud like the brain does by putting words next to each other, arranging them into a sentence in order for them to create meaning in the brain. It is his way of trying to concentrate on the present conversation without disappearing into his own mind. In the discussion taking place right now, you are making references to a song from the musical Annie, trying to make a point. You start singing, "The sun will come out tomorrow, you bet your bottom dollar." Gubb is singing along. He is belting out the lyrics very loud. "Tomorrow, tomorrow." You stop singing in the middle of the chorus. He continues on for a few beats. "So you know that song I'm talking about, Gubb?" He stops singing. "No, I never heard it before." The door of the venue flies open, and a crazed Petra with a psychotic-smelling fume pouring from her every orifice pushes her way through the center of the conversation. Her arms smack Mr. Famous and Gubb in their faces. Her shove separates the three of you, giving her enough space to push her way through as she runs to her car that is illegally parked right in front of the venue. She kicks the door a few times and then smashes her head against the window. She plunges her keys into the lock, sniffling and yelling back at the venue door while her face is still pressed against the window. She pushes the door open, and with a whiplash effect, the door comes back at her full force and knocks her into the front seat. "Fuck this! Fucking whores! Fucking useless tramps! Get the fuck away from me! Tainted! Tainted! I should kill you, you fucker! Fucking keep the bitch!" The car starts up, and while it is still running, she attempts to start it again, which makes the helpless engine squeal. She presses her foot full throttle against the accelerator, spinning the burning tires and turning the Texan air into molten rubber and dust. She runs the front of the car over the curb into a cement pylon, ripping a hole in the muffler. And then, with the vindictive veracity, she shoots the growling car into the distance like a sparkling witch whistling bottle rocket that is always like a sparkling witch whistling bottle rocket that has fallen sideways. What the fuck was that? Franklin says, with his distinctive half grin. I have no idea. You pretend you don't know her. Why associate yourself with a psychopath if there's no need to do so? Franklin doesn't seem to recall that the band spent a painfully boring evening with this same girl a few years ago. So why should you bother recalling her from just a few hours ago? No reason. The moment is laughed away. The conversation is about to begin again when the car is heard in the distance, muffler roaring loud. The venue sits on the corner of a four-way intersection, and down the block there's another four-way intersection underneath a bypass. The three of you look down the street. The car passes by, driving 90 miles an hour, and the front tire crosses over the curb, kitty-corner from the venue. The car hits a bump in the middle of the road and launches into the air and crashes back down and screeches past the three of you as it zooms into the distance in the opposite direction. You can hear a shrieking voice out the opened window. Fucking whore! Fuck all of you fucks! The door of the venue explodes open and 4 or 5 dramatically concerned adolescents push through the remnants of your peaceful conversation with Gubb and Franklin. A millisecond later, a crash thunders from around the corner. Everyone heads toward the sound. Petra has crashed into 2 passing vehicles, one from each direction. All 3 vehicles are spread across the intersection, glass and plastic scattered from side to side. Her friends run to her car, which is sitting with all 4 wheels on a sidewalk, the fenders smashed in on both sides. A BC Pills and an Interrogation League sticker, both ripped to shreds, dangle from crunched metal. That's foreshadowing for you. So remember that. Remember this accident and remember the stickers I just mentioned. She throws open her door and the bottom of it digs into the grass and pulls up a chunk of earth. She swings her arms madly, gesticulating, flipping the bird with her 2 emaciated middle fingers while still screaming deranged, meaningless obscenities. The friends all start yelling at each other. Then, as if nothing exists but themselves, they start running away, chasing after Petra. Leaving behind the 3 demolished vehicles, none of them bother to see if the family in the one car or the cab driver in the other car have been harmed. This is all very true. Franklin yells to someone in the venue to call for the police. Then the 3 of you run to the other 2 passenger cars to see if anybody has been harmed. Everyone is okay. Most of them are in shock and have no idea what happened or what hit them. In the distance, you can hear the group of idiots still arguing. Franklin sums it up best. Fucking selfish melodrama. They have absolutely no concern for the real victims of this minor atrocity. So that's the end of Chapter 10. Thank you very much for following along. It's very interesting that I really did make this choice to bring Petra into another situation. I don't know, as a writer now that I have done a lot more writing and have another novel out, I don't know if I would have created that fallacy. Probably because there's enough surreal stuff in the book that makes it fictionalized that the more I think I would have behooved me to stick to any of the actual facts that I remember. But that's now. And when I did it, I don't remember. Maybe I just thought it would be stronger for the accumulation of events with Petra to lead to what happens near the end of the book, which you will find out when I get, and if I get to the end of the book. All right, thanks. Once again, thank you all for being interested in these. I have at least 30 to 50 different people at different times that watch these. So thank you for the support. I enjoy reading the book, and hopefully it'll help me with pushing me forward to write the next book, which is I think people really like it. It takes a lot of my other punk memories of being on the road that I might not have used in this, and I fictionalize it even more into a cartoon realm. The book is about a cartoon family. And hopefully I'll get that done within the next couple of years. Also, which leads me to remind you to, if you can, donate to me through Jughead's Basement. I now have set up a PayPal link that you can look at down in the comments for donations. Or if you want to do a more long-term, like a year, like $2 a month, or 2, 5, and 10 are the different stages. I would love if you would do that, because I'm doing a lot of these episodes, and we'll finish it. And you can find that link in the comments in the bottom there too. So thanks very much. And now I feel like I'm rambling.
Just show you